Hello, this is Will Harold, the Energy Hunter with Akashic Intelligence, the original AI, coming to you from the beautiful Rogue River Valley in Southern Oregon, where we're going to talk today about biogeometry and how to look at a site and assess a site with biogeometry and energies to maximize the ability to drag in and draw in other energies from around the environment in which the site is located. The first thing that we're going to look at is an overall site. And that site is a site that I recently acquired, which I call Eagle Medicine Ranch, which is in Eagle Point, Oregon. Now, one reason I selected this site was one, it was close to me. Second, I also wanted a separate 5-acre parcel in which I could practice some permaculture and also practice some energy dynamics that would bring back some energy to the land by connecting it to existing power spots and sacred power spots that were natural to the area and had been there for eons. So what you want to look at here is, if you look at my screen, when you assess for biogeometry site analysis, and this is from Ibrahim Karim from the advanced study course, the one thing you want to look at first is the signs of nature. So as we look at this site here, which is what I call Eagle Medicine Ranch, is where the site is. Now, the way I'm looking at this, as you may tell, is through Google Earth. The one thing I like about Google Earth for site assessment is that you can actually get a much wider view of the property, and you can also go to a 3D view where you can actually see the terrain of the property, and you can also see other aspects of the property that are in the vicinity. So one thing that Ibrahim Karim talks about is using photographs for assessing the property, because property may be very large that you're looking at, and you might not just be looking at a home site, but you may be looking at vast acreage of site for energy analysis. You can also use photographs. Now, this is a very old idea that, even some of the Africans and Native Americans did not want people taking pictures of them because they thought it actually captured their essence. And this actually goes back into the Hermetic tradition as above, so below, and also with Egyptian and hieroglyphics and other things where an actual image can capture the resonance of an area or an idea or an intent. I talked earlier about cave paintings. And one thing that Robert Gilbert talks about, who also teaches biogeometry with Ibrahim Karim at the Vesica Institute, he talks about how oftentimes when you find a cave painting, it's a very generic painting of a buffalo or something. People say, oh, they couldn't draw, or people couldn't draw back then. Well, they could draw, but what they were drawing was the essence of the buffalo. And they would actually take that picture of the buffalo and they would throw spears at that picture before they went on a hunt. And they believed, and they said that since this was the essence and their intent was in the essence of this buffalo, that by throwing these spears at the picture on the wall, that it would actually weaken the buffalo and it'd make it easier to kill during the hunt. Whether or not that's true, I don't know, but this is an example of, in history, of using images to actually capture the intent and energetics of an entity and to be able to weaken it or strengthen it by what was being done to that image. So this is also done in remote viewing. So oftentimes in remote viewing, a picture or a photograph of an area will be brought up in which someone was lost, or a child's lost, or an item is lost, or they're trying to find, say, a nuclear missile site. And they'll bring up a picture, and remote viewers will actually scan the picture and begin to pick up energies of what they're looking for within that picture. So you're actually transmuting your consciousness to the energetics of that area. So this is the concept that we're using right now to actually not only assess what's around us visually, but to begin to actually analyze this through radiesthesia. And I'll get into radiesthesia a bit more as I get into actually looking at just the physical characteristics of the site, but also to begin to what we'd call use pendulums, not mental dowsing, but radiesthesia, to pick up some of the energies that may be affected, to actually find earth energy lines, sacred power spots, vortexes, ley lines, all kinds of different earth energies that are actually part of the body of the earth, just as our body has meridians, which we call them, which are used in acupuncture. The earth also has its own lines and energy conduits within it that function to carry energies across its surface. Let's get back to the drawing here I have, or the photo I have in Google Earth of the property. So as you can see here, I actually bring in different aspects. You can bring in what we would call, like, say, a site item to actually say, okay, this is what I'm looking at. This is where and I can go, like I said, I went from 3D, I can go down here in the corner and go back to 2D. And we can actually bring that down here. So as we look at this, this is actually the boundary of my property. Now, the one thing that's a little bit difficult about Google Earth when you're doing larger sites is that when you're doing a house site, you can usually look at the house and tell by the fence lines and so on where the boundary is. In Google Earth, if you don't have real good fence lines, you actually have to draw in the boundary, and that can be done with this little tool down here where you can actually draw lines and shapes. You just click on this little item here, and you can begin to draw lines and save those lines as certain things. It will ask you what you want it to be and so on and so forth, and you can save that line as, right now it says untitled path. If I wanted to, I can hit this little thing and call it, you know, whatever I want to, and just call it angle for now. But those are the kind of things you can do, and then it will show back up as an angle here. But as you see, I put in some of these items. So I put in the Eagle Medicine Round boundary, which is this, which is really the site boundary. I've put in some other markers based on the area that I was very interested in. So the first item that I put in was right here, which I call the Oregon Vortex, which is an actual spot in Oregon, which has been around for a long time. The Indians and the native peoples of this area would say that this was a sacred spot because the horses would not go in this area. They would not go into this area because there was energies there that they didn't understand. I was speaking with a ex-Navy SEAL trainer who also was involved with the remote viewing program. And he said that he flew over this while he was in the Navy SEAL program with a plane that was measuring energies. And he said that this was actually registered as a black hole on the Earth's surface. So this area has extremely powerful energy coming from it. Now, at this time, as this, what we call the veil is thinning, these spots may become like astral portals in which we can draw energy from and draw energy to. I don't know if any of you listen to Gigi Young at gigiyoung.com, but Gigi is actually talking about, you know, do we need spaceships to travel the cosmos? Or can this be something that is done through portals, say like on, if anyone watched Stargate, the show, in which they actually have some type of portal or gate that they go through. This has been done in the past through these portals on the Earth. Some people say that that's what the pyramids were. Some people actually say that's what the Bosnian pyramids are, that these pyramids are actually set up to actually transport us through scalar waves to other dimensions and so on and so forth. If that's true, I don't know it's true for sure. I'm just saying that this is a possibility. So I'm willing at this time as the energy hunter to explore these possibilities. One thing that I do want to do is actually draw these energies towards my property by actually putting in these lines that go from the vortex to my property. The other thing I wanted to do was, as this from the vortex to the property is also this very sacred area called Table Rock right here. Now, Table Rock is where a lot of the native peoples actually would go for a sacred space. And there are trails that you can go up to Table Rock to. Me and a friend of mine went on a hike up here. And as we were hiking, they were spraying the skies. And it was funny because as we stood here, they tried to spray over Table Rock, and the spray would not take. It kept dissipating, it would not form a line. Now, around it, it would, but over the rock itself, it was not like staying in the sky. It would just dissipate as soon as they tried to do it. So you kind of can understand there's probably a lot of energy, maybe orgone energy, coming from the rock, which is sacred energy. So again, here's my property, Eagle Medicine Ranch. Here's the Oregon Vortex, and here's Table Rock. So I've drawn a line that goes actually from Oregon Vortex through Table Rock to Eagle Medicine Ranch. And by doing this, you're actually creating, and if I print this out, because you want to print it out after you draw that, and if you go, Ibrahim Karim used to give these sheets out. I don't know if you can see this or not, but basically it's a sheet of paper with some angles on each corner in which you actually would place the photograph. You can actually place like separate photographs. You could place one of your home and one of, say, like Stonehenge or the pyramids and draw a line to them. And that will actually energetically connect that space to your home. So you can actually get more of a spiritual space or more of an energetic space to your home. So this is what, these used to be free and used to be able to download them on Ibrahim's site. I just checked, they're no longer available, but it's a way in which you can energetically tie spaces and places together. So I'm actually beginning to tie those places together. The other thing I was trying to do is oftentimes it's kind of nice to see what else is in the area in which you might be able to triangulate. So what I've triangulated with this space also is Crater Lake, which I believe is a power spot, and Mount Shasta. It's kind of funny because this almost comes up into thirds exactly. It's almost amazing. But so as I look at these power spots and my property, I'm beginning to, this is the very initial stages of beginning your energy plan, of beginning to look at how you can actually tie in the existing sacred power spots and different energetics of the land into a property that you would like to focus on, which is your home or your garden or a farm or something that you would actually like to increase the energy. It could be for a public building. You might want to have a public building that you want to bring more energetics into because things aren't going quite right there. And you'd like to bring in a more positive tone or a more positive energy. So I began to do this with this property. Now, you might ask, well, how do you know these are power spots or are they real power spots? And the best way to do it is just to take a photograph like this. You can take this and you can go into Snippet. I don't know if anybody's ever used Snippet before, but it's just a program that's available. And you can just say new, and then you can just snip an image out, and that will save that image. And then you can take this and print it on your computer. Now, once you print it on your computer, you would then take your, what Ibrahim Karim would call your BG3 pendulum, which looks like this, which has different shapes on it, which will tune into the BG3 energy. So the BG3 energy, as I've explained, I think in one of the earlier videos, I'm not going to get into a whole lot right now, but that this is the BG3 pendulum in which you find vortexes and power spots. It actually will find those areas which have the highest concentration of the higher harmonic of gold, ultraviolet, and negative green. Now, these were the three aspects that Ibrahim Karim found when he was looking at Coptic Christian tombs in which saints were buried in that were emanating this very high, very beneficial quality that came out of them, which he referred to as BG3, which just means biogeometry in those three aspects I talked about earlier. Now, this differs from, say, mental dowsing, or where you use rods or things like that, where you ask it a question, which is, yes or no. Is there water here? Is there metal here? Is there? And then you're doing a mental exercise with the pendulum where it's answering a yes or no question. What you're doing here is you're serving as an antenna and using what he would call the planes of nature, different shapes, to actually pick up on these energies. So as I look at this, the photograph of that, and I put it over those areas, I get very strong readings of high BG3 coming out of the vortex, out of Table Rock, and also out of my property, which is kind of amazing. I don't know if it's doing that because I found it or it was already there. But when I actually, later on, I'm going to actually do some site assessments on my site, which I actually show where these BG3 areas are on my site. One of them is I have this huge madrone right in the center of the site, which is a multi-trunk, multi-treed madrone, which is huge, which I call Mother Madrone. And that emanates a lot of BG3 from it. And so we're going to get into actually the on-site assessments as we talk later on in another video. I want to keep these somewhat short and not too long. And right now, what I just want to emphasize is that when looking at property, how do you assess a property? Can you use photographs? Yes, because the area is so large. You really couldn't do this, physically. You could walk to the vortex, walk to Table Mountain, Table Rock, and so on and so forth. It'd be very time consuming, and it's very difficult when you're doing large projects. So you can assess property using photographs, just as they do in remote viewing. And you can begin to create a project in Google Earth where you begin to put some information on that drawing and save that. And then that can become a record. If you want to do this as a business later, or you want to have clients, you can always begin to create this record for them. And you can create a record for yourself, because within this, I've also located some things that aren't positive. So one thing that is on the, not quite on the path, but close to the path, because if you see this line, this is the one that goes to the vortex, is this American Radio Tower Network. Now, this tower is actually registered as a very negative force, but I can actually mitigate that. The one thing that is good about that is that the tower, if you look at it in 3D, is actually on the low side, on the other side of the hill from me. So this tower isn't directly, when it emits its signal, it doesn't really go this way. It goes more towards this way, which is the Rogue River Valley. Now, the one thing I'd like to talk about, as I mentioned the Rogue River Valley, is that the way that the Rogue River got its name was that it had a band of native peoples there that would not conform. They were being told to do certain things and to obey certain statements and laws of the settlers that were coming in, and the pioneers from the West, and they would not obey nor comply. So they were given the name, they were Rogue. They were Rogue Indians. And that's how the name, the Rogue River, got its name. So I'd like to actually bring in maybe some of that energy also, the idea of the rogue energy of not willing to comply, of not willing to meet mandates that may be unjust or may not need to be met. So let's bring in a little bit of that rogue energy also as we do this project, to see if we can actually begin to harness that and maybe transmit that. Just as this radio tower is emitting certain frequencies, I'd like to see if this property can emit certain frequencies, because there was also harm done here. So here at Table Rock, there was a massacre that was done in 1855. There was a peace treaty signed in 1853. And in 1853, just below upper Table Rock, which is over here, there's two Table Rocks. There's lower Table Rock and upper Table Rock. right in this area here, there was a pretty big massacre of the native peoples by settlers from Jacksonville to the south. And so some of that energy has to be healed. And I do feel this energy when on my property, I do feel sorrow when I go to Mother Madrone and actually meditate at her feet. I actually feel some sorrow, much sorrow actually, that needs to be healed. So hopefully we can heal the land, we can generate energies, and we can begin to transmit a much higher resonance and frequency of love, understanding, compassion, and healing for the entire area, and maybe a little bit of that rogue energy of not willing to comply with current standards. So this is the first in a series. This is actual site assessment using Google Earth and biogeometry for a site. I hope you like it. There will be more. This will be the first. Like I said, it will be shown both on Akashic Intelligence, the original AI, and also on my other channel, Eagle Medicine Ranch. Please like and subscribe. It always helps. And also give me some comments about, what you think, because today is 2/22/2022, and I started this video at 2:22 p.m. So today is a day for manifestation. Today, go out and manifest. Bring in some energy and emit it out. Thank you so much for listening. Please like and subscribe, and stay healthy.